Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. My name is Jillian McMaster, Manager of Publications and Media, and I'm excited to welcome you to the fourth ArtBites installation, Contorno. Today, we have Chef Kevi Lee Furgason creating a cauliflower dish with a traditional sauce of walnuts, capers, and anchovies, as well as a vegetarian version. The museum's Cushwa College intern, Faith Herrington, will be discussing the painting The Summer by Carlo Maratti and Mario Nuzzi, on view now in the exhibition Bernini and the Roman Baroque, masterpieces from Palazzo Chigi and Ariccia. As always, please feel free to ask questions in the chat area or the Q&A in Zoom. And be sure to join us on Saturday, September 4th for the final ArtBites episode, Dolce. Please welcome Museum Director Sarah Hall, Cushwa College intern Faith Herrington, and Chef Kevi Lee Furgason.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be with you. And here we are at part 4 of our series in which we are exploring the exhibition, Bernini, I can't talk today, sorry, Bernini and the Roman Baroque, masterpieces from the Palazzo Chigi and Ariccia, along with a generous serving of Italian food. If you haven't seen the exhibition, it's up until September 19th, and so I hope you really find the time to get over there. We also have a number of recorded programs interpreting the exhibition, including all of the prior episodes of ArtBites, so you can go to our YouTube channel and check those out. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that the exhibition was organized by Global Project Consulting and was toured by International Arts and Artists of Washington, D.C. We do have a fully illustrated catalog available in our shop, and this is an extraordinary opportunity for the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. It is a more ambitious exhibition than what we are normally able to host. And when the opportunity became available, we had some very generous sponsors, as well as the support of our community, our board members, our board of advisors members, and staff that helped us make this happen. So I do want to thank the following for major support of the exhibition: Howard Kaler, the James and Mary Schurz Foundation, an anonymous donor, Dr. and Mrs. Robert K. Hobbs, Ms. Susan Chemnitzer, Conservat Inc., and Mr. Louis Kawaja. And finally, we're fortunate to have found a team of creative, enthusiastic partners from the Blue Ridge Community and Technical College's Academy of Hospitality and Culinary Arts. The chefs are donating their time to this, and the funds that would have paid their honoraria are being used as a scholarship to the program for a Washington County resident. So today you're going to hear our Cushwa College intern Faith Herrington introduce us to our artwork, which is one of the most spectacular in the exhibition. Just for a little insight, when you're looking at Faith's presentation, and if you haven't seen it in the context of the show, it's over 7 feet long and it's about 200 pounds, and unpacking it and hoisting it up onto the wall that we built specifically for it was a fun challenge and an interesting day of art handling. And Chef Kevi Lee Furgason, I told you I'm having articulation problems today. Kevi is going to demonstrate for us 2 cauliflower dishes, a vegetarian and non-vegetarian version. I'm so happy that everyone's getting a chance to meet Kevi. I know she did our program last week as well. I was on my way driving back from vacation in the hinterlands of North Carolina with very spotty reception. I was trying to be a part of things, but it didn't work out too well. Anyway, Kevi and I have a shared past in Pittsburgh, and she has worked at some of my favorite Pittsburgh restaurants. She even worked at the Frick with me, and I didn't know it at the time. We didn't know each other. I ended up connecting with her after my move to Hagerstown, talked to her about maybe doing a food demo related to this show, and it turned into this terrific collaboration. So I thank Kevi for facilitating the relationship with the college and for bringing all of her colleagues on board. It's been so much fun, and hopefully we will be able to do something similar for some of the other exhibitions that we have scheduled. I would like to continue this. We're getting some enthusiastic responses from people. So with all of that backstory behind us, I'm going to hand things over to Faith for a summertime look at the painting Summer, and I'll see you again at the end. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Let me just share my screen so we can get started. All right. So hi, I'm Faith Herrington, the curatorial intern here at the Washington County Museum of Fine Art. And today I'd like to start with a visual analysis so that we can appreciate some of this painting's unique attributes, and we can dive right into the artist's biographies, and then give some more historical context, and then talk a little bit more about the painting. So what immediately stands out to me about this painting is that there seems to be two distinct dominant attributes about it. We've got these elaborate floral garlands by Mario Nuzzi or Mario di Fiori, and these figures by Carlo Maratti. We've got these four putti and then the goddess Ceres as the embodiment of summer. So these two distinct attributes of this painting really work together to create this Baroque drama and emphasize nature as nature in the summer and kind of display the wealth and abundance of the season. The four putti seem to take an unusual significance within this work. They act as Ceres' companions. They create this jovial sense to the scene. We've got some sub-dramas here with these two puttis in the corner. And then we've got the central putti, who is kind of recalling the classical tradition through his stoic pose and dominant gaze, and grounding the work and creating a sort of focal point. We've also got really intense lighting going on here. At first, for a depiction of summer, this painting can seem sort of dark, but there's a lot of chiaroscuro, this dramatic lighting, and it's kind of emphasizing the power within the sun within this season. Another way that the sun is being represented is with this parasol that this putti is holding here, kind of casting him into this shadow. He sort of recedes into the background and creates a lot more depth within this work. Let's see what we've got here. So we've also got this another focal point and draws your eye to the center of the painting. Ceres' face is reflected but also obscured in shadow, and then this one eye gazes out towards the viewer, sort of confrontationally, and allows us to kind of enter the painting through that. The painting is remarkable in the way that it combines several means of artistic expression to achieve its goals. It combines not only still life and figure painting, but also the classical and Baroque traditions to achieve a sense of exuberance and abundance that encourages the viewer to celebrate the season of summer for its bountiful harvest and good weather. I also have included some details of this painting for anyone who hasn't seen it up close. This captivating mirror here. You can see this eye of Ceres that's really sort of mysterious, and Mario di Fiori's still lifes, which kind of take on some Dutch influence. We've got a very dark background, highly lit, and a very scientific and detailed rendering, which really places the emphasis back on nature within this work. So as mentioned earlier, the Allegory of Summer exists as part of a series on the four seasons, each of which was completed by Mario di Fiori in collaboration with various figure painters. This is sort of unique because you would assume within a series of four paintings that each have figurative elements, that the figure painters would be the primary painters, but instead the emphasis is again on nature, as Mario di Fiori's still lives become really as equal as the figures within these works. So Mario Nuzzi, who later adopted the pseudonym Mario di Fiori because of his penchant for flower painting, was born in Rome in 1603, where he spent the entirety of his career. Mario di Fiori trained under the painter Tommaso Cellini, who may have been Fiori's uncle. Some sources differ on this, but Cellini was a still life painter as well, who specialized in sharply lit paintings with minute details depicting flowers, vegetables, and fruits. Fiori was greatly influenced by Cellini, particularly in his naturalism and his Caravagesque use of light. Fiori enjoyed a prosperous career as the first and most famous Roman painter to specialize in flower painting. He had many notable patrons, including the Barberini family, Pope Clement IX, Giancarlo de' Medici, and Cardinal Flavio Kiki, who commissioned the summer. Cardinal Flavio Kiki also commissioned many works by Nuzzi within the palace, including these ornate columns and decorations around mirrors. Mario di Fiori was also elected to the Accademia di San Marco, the most notable association of artists in Rome of the time. Fiori died in 1673 at the age of 70, but his work remained an inspiration for generations of still life painters. And next, here we have an example of Fiore's work that displays his incredible use of light and realism of his flowers. They're so textured and detailed that the viewer almost feels like you could reach through the canvas and touch these flowers. His works celebrate nature's beauty in a way that was unmatched during this period, and this really made him the perfect artist to complete this series on the Four Seasons. Next, I would like to talk about Carlo Maratti, our figure painter here. Carlo Maratti was the last significant Italian artist of the classical tradition, which was originated by Raphael. Maratti was known for his distinctive style that combined the emphasis of line that was originated by artists such as Andrea Sacchi and the use of color practiced by Pietro de Cortona. Maratti created a grandiose and decorative style that satisfied the demands of the church during the Counter-Reformation. And his late works in particular have a grace and refinement that anticipated the development of the Rococo and Neoclassical movements. And here I'd also like to show an example of his work. That's Alpheus and Aruzia. This is a scene from mythology when the river goddess Alpheus is chasing this nymph Aruzia, and she's enveloped in a cloud and then turns into a river. This painting really also displays his ability to combine the Baroque and classical traditions. But first, let's get back to his biography. Born in 1625 in Camerano, a small town on the east coast of Italy, Maratti showed a talent for art at a young age. He made copies of colored engravings and saints to sell, and then he moved to Rome in 1636, supported by Correntino Benecampi, a friend of his father and secretary of the Pope's nephew Taddeo Barberini. Shortly after Maratti arrived in Rome, there was a pivotal debate held at the Accademia di San Luca between supporters of Disegno, led by Andrea Sacchi, as I mentioned, and Colère in Italian, who followed Pietro de Cortona. This would have interested Maratti, as he later united the virtues of both of these parties. He entered the workshop of Andrea Sacchi, where he mastered draftsmanship and displayed a talent for figure painting. Maratti also enjoyed a very prosperous career. He maintained a well-connected and steady stream of commissions since his entry into painting. He was one of his most notable patrons was Pope Alexander VII, who commissioned the Visitation for Santa Maria della Pace and the Nativity in the Gallery in Quirinal Palace, where he worked with Pietro de Cortona. In 1650, his work really comes into his own and develops rapidly, blending skillful draftsmanship and a restrained classicism with light and movement of the high Baroque. During the 1660s, he continued to build up a client base among the wealthy patrons in Europe and established the most prominent art studio in Rome of his time. After the death of Bernini in 1680, he became the leading artist in Rome. And in 1664, Maratti became the director of the Accademia di San Luca. And before his death in 1713, Maratti worked on several restoration projects, including by artists such as Raphael and Annabella Carracci, so retouching their works and kind of getting in touch with his classical past. Right, and then I sort of spoke a little bit about this work, and it really combines classicism and his Baroque style as well, because we've got this very strong pyramidal composition, but also this drama, lighting, and movement that would have been associated with the Baroque. So to our painting, let's talk a little bit more in depth about this work as a synthesis of the classical and Baroque traditions. The figures also form this pyramidal composition, which is a hallmark of the highly organized classical period, but they're fairly unrestrained within their movements. The putti in particular have this Baroque sensibility, especially this one down here in the corner carrying this elaborate garland. The flowers also have all of the drama and excitement of the Baroque. This mirror, too, is Baroque in its execution. It's not an exact or scientific rendering of Ceres' reflection, but gives more an impression of her face and adds more mystery. The goddess Ceres appears here as the embodiment of summer. She's the goddess of the harvest, which is indicated through the crown of grains on her head. Ceres is the Roman counterpart to the Greek goddess Demeter. She's also the goddess of motherhood and fertility. She's the perfect representation of summer, as it's a season where many crops are harvested. There's this abundance of food and light, and life is in full bloom, you could say. This mirror, again, also is holding the significance as a symbol of beauty of this season, as well as showing the viewer what we could otherwise not see of this other angle of Ceres' face. This painting combines the ancient Roman mythology with the secular ideas of nature and the four seasons to create a poetic reflection on the cyclical passage of time as a way to display the patron's knowledge of the ancient myths and wealth. This was something that was very popular in this period. It might seem unusual for a cardinal to have a painting that's reflecting, themes from another religion or talking about these secular ideas of nature, but rather it's really showing their wealth and status, that not everything that they own is related to the church and that they're aware of their country's classical past. The patron of this Allegory of Summer was Cardinal Flavio Kiki. Here is the portrait by Jacob Ferdinand Vauet, which is also within our exhibition. And we also have here the Palazzo Kiki in Aruzia. This was their sort of summer palazzo, but it is extremely large, as you can see, and elaborate. Cardinal Flavio Kiki was an Italian Catholic cardinal and Duke of Aruzia. He was the cardinal nephew to Pope Alexander VII and became a powerful political force inside the Roman Catholic Church during the later half of the 17th century. He was also an important patron of the arts. He worked closely with Bernini, renovating the Palazzo Chigi, and he commissioned paintings from many of the most notable painters of Rome at the time. And just to give you some context here, this is the dining room of the Palazzo Chigi, where this series, The Four Seasons, had our painting, The Summer by Nuzzi and Maratti. And then I can show you really quickly some of the other paintings within this series. So here is Autumn by Giacinto Brandy. We have another work by Brandy within our exhibition. And as we've talked about a little bit before within this series, a lot of these artists have many connections. And you'll see that within these paintings, we've also got artists who were all connected. So Giacinto Brandy, Lot and His Daughters is the painting that's within our exhibition. And here you can see Autumn is represented through these gourds and more, autumnal produce, and somewhat less flowers are exhibited here as well. We have Winter by Bernardino May and Mario Di Fiori. They have flowers. Winter is often represented as an old man, particularly within these paintings. And then we have Filippo Lori, who we spoke about last week in Herminia Among the Shepherds. And Spring has just an abundance of flowers by Mario Nuzzi and is even more exuberant and full of drama than Summer. And then let's go back to our dining room picture to kind of think about how it would have been presented to viewers at the time and what sort of goals these paintings are achieving. It's hard to really imagine here just how grand these paintings were. As Sarah mentioned earlier, they're quite large. It's about 5 by 8 feet each. And so this dining room is really just immense and would have been very impressive to any visitors of this palazzo. And we can really think about how guests sitting here in this dining room while they're eating their food and appreciating what produce they're eating during the season have a chance to reflect upon the seasons and nature's bounty and the past mythology as they gaze up at these paintings and at the summer. So I'll go back to my slide on the summer. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. But if not, I'm ready to turn it over to Chef Kevi Lee Furgason, and we can think some more about cauliflower and be grateful for that wonderful vegetable. Alrighty, I'll just stop my share. There we go.
chef instructor at the Blue Ridge Community and Technical College Academy of Hospitality and Culinary Arts. This will be my last session for these series, but we do have one more. Don't forget, we have Stephen Weiss next week bringing our dessert in. And today I'm going to roast 2 cauliflower heads. I already roasted one just for culinary and movie magic, so we have it already done. But this one we are going to do in real time, and I can show you how to cut it as well. So this is a varietal. We were very lucky to find this in the area. This is a varietal called Cheddar Cauliflower. Now, the color on the Cheddar Cauliflower is actually naturally occurring beta carotene. It's the same chemical that gives carrots its orange color. And the funny thing about the Cheddar Cauliflower, this was actually not a hybrid cauliflower. This came from a naturally occurring mutant, randomly popped up in a Canadian field, and that's where we got the orange cauliflower from. So to trim it, it's very easy. We're gonna flip it over and we're going to cut the stalk down so that it's flush with the florets. Now these can be called florets. It's also called curd. And if you look closely at it, the spirals are actually a fractal. Every single branch is an exact copy of the smaller one before it. So a lot of fractals occur in nature. This is the same ratio that you would see in like a snail shell. It's also the same ratio that you would see in the Fibonacci sequence. So to start out, we're going to cut it in half, literally kind of like a brain. We are going to keep a couple of leaves on the bottom. They're fine to eat. They're actually delicious as well. If you grow it in your garden, you can totally eat the leaves. So we're going to cut in half. So we have 2 lobes like a brain, and then we're going to slice it about 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. And you can see that beautiful color in it. Now there are a couple of different types of cauliflower. The one that you're probably the most familiar with is the snowball or white cauliflower. There's also purple cauliflower and green Romanesco cauliflower, and those are lovely as well. And there's a new cauliflower that's been bred. It's a cross between cauliflower and broccoli rabe. It's called Fioretto, and it looks like broccoli rabe. It's a very long stem. It's really nice for sautés and stuff like that. When you're roasting, however, a head gives you more oomph to it. If you wanted to do this for a vegetarian entree, you could slice the head down whole and serve them as like a lot of vegetarians I know serve them as a cauliflower steak. And those are lovely as well. So we are going to slice it down. Look how gorgeous that is. We're going to toss that with about 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Throw a little bit more in there. And then we are going to toss our salt in now. Like a little bit of salt, but truthfully, you're going to lose a little bit to the tray during cooking. So it's not a huge deal. Now, normally I would say do not crowd the cauliflower when you're roasting a vegetable. However, this is a very small sheet tray and we're going to work with what we have today, but you get a much better caramelization on it if you give it plenty of room to breathe. So we're going to be a little bit crowded today, but we'll work with what we have. So there are a couple schools when it comes to roasting vegetables. There's one school that says that you should salt the vegetables before you put them into the oven. Now that's cool. And then there's the other school that says that you should salt the vegetables when they come out of the oven. Now I like salting them before they go in the oven because it gives longer time for the salt to penetrate the vegetables and to season it. And when you add the salt at the aftertaste, a lot of those grains won't dissolve. It'll be a very strong flavor up front, and you won't be quite as mellow or balanced as if you had salted it in the beginning. So we're gonna give our work surface a quick wipe. Now the reason that we didn't pepper this is because at such high temperatures, we're roasting at 450 degrees today. At such high temperatures, the pepper can sometimes burn and turn acrid, and we don't really want that. And same with the garlic. We add the garlic halfway through the roasting time so that it doesn't burn and become a little bit toasty as well. So we have that roasting. We're gonna start on the sauce. This is the vegetarian sauce. Audrey Scanlon Teller, who I worked with last week, was a vegetarian. And I felt really bad that she couldn't eat the lamb chops, and we had the anchovies and one of the sauces today. So I decided to do another one, just a quick one, so that we can satisfy everybody's needs, because this is a lovely. So we have a cup of the white wine that Chef Miriam had talked about in her first talk. That was a lovely Prosecco. And then we are going to add our golden raisins. And then we are going to chop up a little bit of rosemary really quickly. Now this rosemary is complimentary of Chef John Lane at the Blue Ridge Community and Technical College Greenhouse. He works in collaboration with the agribusiness program. They provide a lot of the herbs, a lot of the greens. We've been getting a ton of gorgeous vegetables out of the greenhouse this year, and we all just want to like really thank John for his hard work. So, thanks, John. We're gonna strip the rosemary off. Look how lovely that is. And then we're gonna give that a quick mince. Now, rosemary is a very strong flavor. I'd say to use it sparingly when you do use it. The Italians actually use it with abundance. And there's a quick little thing that I want to tell you about. There's this town in Italy called Acciaroli. And Acciaroli is one of the green areas. I don't know if you know what green area is, but it is a concentration of high centenarians, or people who have reached over 100 years of age. Now, Acciaroli actually has 1 in 60 people is going to reach over 100 years in age. And people attribute that to the Mediterranean diet. And there's also a very special local kind of rosemary that gets a lot of the minerals from the sea, and it grows in a very rocky terrain. And that is in almost every dish that they make in the city. So we can hopefully attribute rosemary to a long life. So we are going to start that out in a small saucepan over medium-high heat. And we're just gonna let that infuse a little bit to infuse the wine with the rosemary and to rehydrate those raisins with the wine. And I'm just gonna grab that. Be sure, don't be like me. When you're taking out your sultanas or golden raisins, make sure you check for any kind of stems or anything. And then the final piece of that dish is the walnuts. And walnuts are gonna give us a beautiful crunch and full of great polyunsaturated fats. They're very healthy, full of antioxidants as well. I will say the walnuts that we're using today have been toasted. If you want the full benefits of all the antioxidants and natural oils of the walnuts, don't toast them. That actually dissipates them and makes it a little bit less healthy for you, but it also brings out like a lot of natural flavors and makes it delicious. So we're just gonna give these a rough chop. Always keep your fingers curled under when you're chopping. If you lose a finger, you can't blame it on the academy. So we have a beautiful rough chop on that. And we're gonna turn down our raisins just a bit. Already at the boil. And we are just going to flip that to avoid cross-contamination with the nuts. And we're going to start working on our cauliflower again. So these are our garlic cloves for the cauliflower. And like I said, we aren't going to add those until about halfway through, because we just want to make sure that they don't burn. Because garlic, when it burns, is not really that tasty. So the recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic. Now this, if you can see those two, they're really small. So we're gonna go up to 5 cloves. Now crush the garlic with the side of the knife. That releases a lot of the natural flavors of it and makes it really nice to chop. And then we're gonna give that a rough chop. Get some really good flavors in there. And that is, so we are going to pull the cauliflower out. Also getting some nice color on there. You can see it started to steam already. I'm gonna give that a toss. It looks like I'm getting caught in the parchment there. Toss garlic in. A nice shake to redistribute everything again and throw that back in. Set our timer. Now, we have done 3 savory dishes. I'm going to take a second and say a note on this. 3 savory dishes. Chef Ashley did that beautiful chicharra cut pasta with mushrooms. I did the roasted lamb chops the grilled lamb chops last week, and this week we're doing the 2 preparations of cauliflower. Now, if you've noticed and you followed around with the series, we have used no tomatoes. And tomatoes are kind of ubiquitous for the Italian cooking. But the thing is that tomatoes were introduced into Italy around 1500. But that did not actually catch on as a cooked food until somewhere around the 1750s, 1800s. Tomatoes were used almost exclusively for salads. And then the cooked tomato sauces were not really popular until the early 1900s, late 1800s. So there is a noticeable lack of tomatoes in the food that we've been doing at the time. But we're just trying to keep it a little bit historically accurate. We are a lot of steam on that. You want to get a look in here? Those have started to bubble up really nicely. We've reduced it a good bit. I know the steam's a little bit hard to go through, but they're starting to plump up. We're going to reduce it a little bit more. We want about 2 to 3 tablespoons of liquid left in there, just so it doesn't get too dry. And then we are going to start on our second sauce. So, now that we only have a couple tablespoons of liquid left, we're going to pull this off and set it aside so it can soak up a little bit more. And we're going to start on our second sauce. We're inside this week, so my hands aren't quite as sweaty. I can get both gloves on instead of just the one. So we are going to start. We have a 1/4 cup of beautiful extra virgin olive oil. Now, if you noticed, we have roasted the cauliflower in a plain neutral vegetable oil. Now, the reason for doing this is because olive oil, especially pure olive oil, extra virgin, has a very low smoke point. It has a smoke point of 375 degrees. Now, when it hits that smoke point and starts to burn, the oil and the flavors and the acids and the oil that give those like beautiful nuances start to break down and become really stinky, and no one really wants burnt oil. All of us have smoking pans in our houses. It's not really the most fun experience. So we're gonna try to avoid that. We're gonna use the olive oil in this case as flavoring for the end after it's done roasting. So you can see in this pan, the oil is starting to shimmer a little bit. That means that it is heated up to a lovely temperature. We're not going to bring it up too high. We don't quite want it to fry the anchovies. We just want it to kind of dissipate them. And these are our lovely anchovies. When you can, get them oil packed, especially when you're doing Italian food. Oil packed is always going to have a better texture and a better flavor. Anchovies are small saltwater fish. They range between 2 inches to 7 inches, is largest when they're adult size. They are used extensively in Italian cooking. Actually, the ancient Romans, they had not very many flavors or condiments to choose from because they hadn't learned about preservation yet. So a lot of the ancient Roman recipes were seasoned with a sauce called garum, which is a precursor to the anchovies. The anchovies were salted and then left to ferment, and then that sauce, that beautiful fish sauce, was used to season almost everything that they made. So if you are afraid of the bones in anchovies, let me just tell you that the bones are so small, I don't know if you can see those, so small that a lot of them break up eventually anyways. We've got a little bit of bubble on that. A little bit more, so we're going to take that off. We have 5 anchovies in there. Right. Get rid of the fish blocks. So we are going to break those up a little bit. You can see the oil is just kind of like melting them. See how lovely they're getting. Now I know some people might be a little bit afraid of anchovies because they are a very pungent taste. But if you have ever had a Caesar salad, trust me, you are eating a ton of anchovies. They flavor most of the dressing in a Caesar salad and then give it a lot of flavor. You are also probably eating them in Worcestershire sauce because that is a heavy component of Worcestershire sauce as well. So don't be afraid of anchovies. They add a lot of flavor. So there we have that. And that oil is going to infuse lovely with that flavoring. And then we are going to take our last ingredients and chop those up. So here we have our capers. Now capers are we're going back to flowers again. As I said, cabal fiore. The original name for cauliflower translates to cabbage flower. And capers are actually the flower buds of the caper bush. Caper berries are the fruit of the caper bush. So after they have opened up and flowered, that's when a caper becomes a caper berry, and those are much larger. So capers are picked when they're very small. The smaller the caper, the more expensive they are. So these are picked in Greece almost on a daily basis just to keep up with demand and make sure that they have a really high quality to them. So we're going to take that, give that a nice quick chop. Toss that in with our anchovies and let that infuse a little bit. And then we have some more beautiful herbs from Chef John's garden. This is a beautiful oregano, and you just pull the leaves down to strip them off the stem. Now, remember that oregano is a very strong herb, and to use it as sparingly as possible, like rosemary or thyme. The name oregano actually comes from the Greek Oregano, which literally translates to joy of the mountains. And that comes from the fact that they think that Aphrodite was the one who gifted Greece with oregano to bring joy to her gardens within the mountainous regions of Greece, which I love that story. I love food origin stories because it's usually some kind of romantic, mythological, beautiful story. So Oregano, the joy of the mountains. We're gonna toss that into our capers and our anchovies. And just let that infuse for a second. So we have that. Now I'm gonna talk for a second just on nutmeg. Nutmeg is another berry of a tree. I'm gonna move this out of the way now as well. Mace, if you've ever used that as well, is the outer covering to the nutmeg. Now I think I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. Ground nutmeg is trash. Doesn't taste very good. A lot of the volatile oils that make nutmeg dissipate very quickly after it's grated. So I really highly suggest getting whole nutmeg, getting either a microplane, or this was my grandmother's, this nutmeg grater, and I love this because there's a little hole on top. You can keep the nutmeg in when you're not using it. So we're going to use that today. From 1/8 of a teaspoon, and nutmeg is also very pungent, so you don't want to go very strong on that either. That smells amazing. side and give that a couple fresh churns of black pepper. And then we can dress our cauliflower. Do a check on those. Now, like I said, we roasted one cauliflower earlier just so that we had some time. A little bit of UV magic. Look at that guy. We have some beautiful color on that. Move that out of the way. And we are going to give that a couple of grinds of fresh black pepper. A few more minutes. And then our spatula, and you can see the raisins have soaked up a lot of that wine. They have a beautiful color. They're really nice and plump. And that'll be a really nice flow for that. So we are going to just drizzle that over the top of the cauliflower. And Italians were huge fans of mixing the savory and the sweet in the Baroque era. And then we are just going to throw our lovely walnuts over top. That's our first dish, our vegetarian dish. And then that just went off. So we're going to bring that up as well. Lovely platters at the Academy. Very lucky to be able to use them for this. Thank you to Chef Sam Cook for allowing us to use the Brewing Cafe for our demo today. So we have that parchment. Look at the beautiful color. Cheddar color. Oh, it's got a lot of steam coming out of it. Clean up my area a tiny bit. Okay. And I think that gold is going to go really nicely with the olives, or I'm sorry, the olive greens and the lovely bright green of the oregano. So we're going to drizzle that over the top. Now, last week I talked a little bit about Pecorino Romano, and just to remind you, that is a sheep's milk cheese, not a cow's milk. And the lovely thing about Pecorino Romano and sheep's milk is that it has a higher milk protein content. So cheeses made from sheep's milk are always going to be a little bit more buttery and creamy than, say, a cheese made with goat's milk or cow. So we have our lovely Pecorino Romano, and we are just going to shower the cauliflower with that because you can never have too much cheese. Beautiful. And then we're gonna give it a few more minutes of our beautiful fresh black pepper. I wish you guys were here so that you could smell these. But like I said, you can serve either of them hot or room temperature. It makes a lovely salad or a lovely side dish. These are actually great for picnics and for taking it to like a potluck. It's a really beautiful, beautiful dish. And I mean, cauliflower is so big right now. Why wouldn't you? Thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. I had a great time today, and I'm really excited to eat this. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Jillian and Sarah. And thanks, you guys.
We did have a couple questions, Kevi. One came in about, and I think I answered it correctly, but I'd rather have you answer it, was what were you checking the sultanas for?
Checking the sultanas for?
Yeah.
A lot of times when you get grapes, you are going to find stems in them. I'm sorry, raisins, you're gonna find stems in them. I did have one in there. I thought I had checked it a little bit better. Just make sure you don't have any stems in your raisins. Sometimes they fall through and they're not caught by the company, but.
That's what I thought. And the other question was about grating the nutmeg. You're just grating it whole. You're not removing that outer mace covering that you mentioned.
No, so mace is actually a completely different spice and it's sold separately. Mace is a red web-like, the actual scientific term is called the aril, A-R-I-L. It's the covering. It looks like a web and it's outside the nutmeg. That is actually removed before you get the whole nutmeg berry just because it's sold as a separate spice.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Really fascinating to know. Terrific. Anybody else out there have questions? We have a comment that came through. Both look delicious. Can't wait to try both recipes on my own. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge with us. I couldn't agree more with that. I wished I'd run out and bought some cauliflower yesterday and didn't. So maybe I can pick some up tomorrow. I wanted to share my screen here at the end to wrap things up a little bit. Popping up. There it is. So here's a reminder about ArtBites. We've been doing 2 a month. We did 2 in July and we've now done our 2nd in August. So our next is not until September 4th. I'm a little worried because it's Memorial Day weekend, but we have a celebrity chef, Stephen Weiss, that day. So I'm hoping he brings his audience and we hold on to the audience we've established thus far so that on a holiday weekend, we can have a good time exploring this painting. I'm doing the wrap up conclusion and it's a really fun painting to talk about. And I did a little fuzzy enlargement there where you can see the basket of the asps, the Egyptian cobras on her windowsill amongst the figs. And so it's all about fresh figs when we are together in September. And I had, I always want to plug our other programs. So in the meantime, coming up next week, Daniel Fulco, our Agneta M. Stein Schreiber curator, and I are going to be joined by some special guests on Thursday night, focusing on the Joshua Johnson exhibition, which is another fabulous exhibition we have up simultaneous to Bernini and the Roman Baroque. It's a sort of yin and yang of what we can do. This is all about our own scholarship and research and exploring this really significant Black artist who worked in Maryland around 1800. And we're going to explore genealogy as it is used in art historical research. So that should be really interesting. And we also are doing a 3-part program on the history of Black music. And part 1 already happened. We looked at spirituals and antebellum music on plantations. Part 2 is going to be Thursday, September 2nd, and then we're going to wrap that series up in October. We have Dr. Devana Rowe leading those programs and also doing a little bit of performing as she illuminates history with us. So I just want to get those on everybody's radar. And again, we'll be back for ArtBites in September. And I'm just really happy to always have you with us. I've been enjoying this series so much, as have many of you. I think we've got one more thing. We've got one more comment that came in the chat that I'm trying to open. For some reason, it's not letting me open the chat today. Okay, here we go. I don't eat sweets, but this is so interesting and so fun. I'm signing up for September. That's what we like to hear. Thank you so much, everybody. I just want to put in one last plug for supporting the museum. We are now celebrating our 90th year of free admission. We do so much to enhance the community through our exhibitions, youth art education, after school enrichment programs, concerts, lectures, and always trying to innovate, like I think we're doing a bit with ArtBites. We love collaborating with others on programs like this. So please consider making a donation or becoming a member of the museum. I have felt very strongly through the pandemic that all of these programs that we're doing, we are providing for free. We can't promise to do that forever, but for the foreseeable future, yeah, yes. So I've been really happy to be with all of you, and have a nice day, everybody.